Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So, Tuesday means it's Type 2 or Standard Tuesday, but we kind of have a problem. Standard is super stale. I spent a long time this week digging through every single result I could find from around the world, and about the spiciest list I could come up with was Grixis vehicles, which is essentially Mardu vehicles splashing a single blue card. There's just nothing new going on. Some people may say that our current standard is pretty horrible, one of the worst, and I thought instead of looking at a fairly boring and already known standard deck from our current standard for Type 2 Tuesday this week, instead, since standard is apparently horrible, maybe we'll look at a truly horrible standard deck from Magic's past. So this is the deck that has been voted the worst Pro Tour winning deck of all time. It is Green Red Spiders, and it was played to a Pro Tour title in the hands of Ali Rade back in 1996, and technically it was in Alliance Ice Age constructed, but Standard was different back then, so it was essentially Standard, close enough to Standard that we can make it work. So today for our Type 2 Tuesday Instant Deck, let's take a look at this Green Red Spiders list. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any place we could play this deck, so that won't work, but just enjoy the worst Pro Tour winning deck list of all time. So the deck, the key card, super important, Fyndhorn Elves. Just 1 mana 1/1 that taps for a mana. So why is Fyndhorn Elves so important? Because the deck wants to start playing its 3 drops on turn 2. That's really key to the deck's success. So what 3 drops are we talking about? Oh, the namesake Spiders, of course. So the deck seems to have a primary plan of beating down with 3 mana 2/3s. Giant Tapper Spider has the upside of, if you can pay 3 mana and tap it, you can exile the spider and an attacker from the game as long as that attacker doesn't have flying, can't have flying, and then Woolly Spider, kind of a 2/3 with reach, and it actually gets a little bigger if it blocks a flyer. So Fyndhorn Elves on turn 1, turn 2, start playing the spiders, beating down for 2. I don't know how the opponent will be able to survive, but it doesn't end there. We have even more 3 drops. Orcish Cannoneers does 2 damage to a creature or player and 3 damage to you. So you kind of lose in the trade, but if you can get in enough damage with your spiders, you can swing the effect in your favor. And then Storm Shaman, just a casual 0/4 for 2 in red, but it has fire breathing, so you can pay a red to pump it, and we'll see when we get to the mana base. It's not really optimized to maximize the potential of the Storm Shaman. As far as the rest of the creatures, Gorilla Shaman gives us a main deck artifact hate card, and then Deadly Insect essentially has Shroud, but the downside is it trades with a Fyndhorn Elves and it's 5 mana. You get a 6/1 Shroud, so it's not going to die to Swords to Plowshares, not going to be eaten by targeted removal, but if your opponent has a blocker, it's going to die to pretty much anything, and that's a little rough with your 5 mana play. The spells, we get a bunch of removal. Incinerate is actually a legitimately good card. It's like a Lightning Bolt that's 1 more mana. I would kill for an Incinerate in our current standard. Lava Burst is kind of a weird fireball effect. It deals X damage to something. Pyroclasm to sweep away the board. Also kind of a combo with your spiders, since your spiders have 3 toughness. On the other hand, not a combo with Deadly Insect. It wraps away your 5 drops. And then Stormblind. Oh boy, this card. So you get a 3 mana enchantment. And then what does this enchantment do, I hear you ask? Well, you can pay 2 and discard a card at random, and you get to shock something. It's basically a repeatable shock, but it's the worst repeatable shock you could ever imagine. Then we have a Giant Growth, because 2/3s aren't always enough to get the job done. Can't target our Deadly Insects, but we can throw the Giant Growth at our creatures, maybe get in a bit more damage. And then we have Jockle Hops, only a 6 mana Wrath that also destroys all lands in our 18 land deck. And then Pillage can get lands, or it can get artifacts in a pinch. And my favorite slide of this entire deck, 2 Lodestone Baubles, and 4 Urza's Baubles. These are cards that literally do nothing. They basically say, I couldn't find 6 other cards that actually do something to put in my deck, so I will play 0 mana artifacts that cycle, essentially. Lodestone Bauble can return 4 basic lands from a player's graveyard to their hand. I guess it's a hoser if your opponent is strip mining you and combo with your own Jackal Hops. You can cast that, blow up everything, get back 4 lands, gotcha, opponent. And Urza's Bauble is kind of like a Mishra's Bauble, except it looks at a random card in a player's hand instead of the top card of their library, and then you get to draw a card at the beginning of the upkeep. But there's no delirium, there's no synergies for being artifacts, they're just purely bad cyclers, just filling slots in the deck. The mana base, very reminiscent of our current day dual decks, a ton of basic lands, and 1 set of duels in Karplusan Forest. Unfortunately, there are only a total of 18 lands in the deck, which is pretty skimpy when you have a bunch of Deadly Insects at 5 mana, Jackal Hops, not even considering that people are strip mining and pillaging and actually attacking people's lands back in the day. As far as the sideboard, Zuran Orb to gain some life, Pyroblast to counter blue spells, Pyroclasm for more sweeping effects, Icy Manipulator to tap some stuff down, and the sideboard kind of gets progressively crazier as we go along. Another Jackal Hops in case you really gotta blow everything up. Primitive Justice is essentially the first multi-kicker. Jester's Cap is the counter to combo to actually get to exile 3 cards from your opponent's library, but this is where it gets really fun. The rest of the sideboard is just kind of random hate cards. Essence Filter blows up all enchantments, or all non-white enchantments, I guess if you're playing a white deck. Anarchy randomly destroys all white permanents. Monsoon, if you're playing counter spells, fights through those islands, makes your opponent tap them at the end of their turn. And then Vexing Arcanis, oh my lord, this card. 4 mana, you pay 3 and tap it. Your opponent is going to name a card. If it's the top card of their deck, then they get to draw that card. So if you target your opponent for 3 mana, after casting this 4 mana artifact, and they say island, and there's an island on top of their deck, they get it in their hand, nothing happens. If they misguess, then it does 2 damage to that player. So it only damages your opponent. It costs 1,000,000 mana, not only to cast, but to activate. And it's not even guaranteed to shock your opponent. And even in the best case, when everything goes well, you're paying 7 mana to deal 2 damage to your opponent. And that's when you're not letting your opponent draw cards. So, oh goodness. Anyway, that is Green Red Spiders from 1996 in Ice Age Alliance's standard. And that's our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.